As fuel prices continue to rise due to the Iran war, the Taoiseach has said the government is actively reviewing cost of living measures to ease the burden.
Totally crazy. So look, 1st of March, €503. That's basically €1 a litre. By the 11th of March, you're looking at €870. I mean, this is basically 2 weeks of sustained ridiculous pricing. Let's check that out. So, if you're someone like me who heats their house with oil or gas in Ireland, you've probably been aware recently that the war in the Middle East is driving prices crazy high. As a homeowner, I feel like you have very little power to be able to control your energy bills without just trying to turn the heating off and put a down jacket on. After getting my house surveyed to find the BER rating, I found out one of the ways I could increase the BER rating was to install a wood-burning stove. It's kind of crazy, I know. It seems like an old-fashioned solution to a modern problem. Well, the first thing I did was I decided that a wood burner was now justified. Carbon-neutral products like wood are a sustainable way to heat your home. I took the time to build a hearth and install a wood burner after I'd learned the methods on YouTube. So here is my stove. I built the hearth myself using a mix of concrete and rebar, and I used wood on the outside. I learned from YouTube how to install a stove, and I made sure all the fittings were bought in conjunction with fire standards from my local area. On the left here I have a wooden basket which I store bigger pieces of wood, and on the right a basket with smaller pieces. Right next to the stove I keep things like fire lighters, kindling. Right there is an air purifier, I'll get to that later. I have some glass cleaner. On top of the stove I also use a stovetop fan. This makes the heat circulate in the room in a very efficient way. And a stovetop thermometer, I'll get back to that. And it immediately started bringing my heating costs down. But the next problem was, where do I find firewood? Well, if you live in a city like me, it's very easy to find firewood. There's loads and loads of people getting rid of pallets. There's a huge amount of energy sitting there outside industrial estates in the form of pallets going to waste. Often these pallets are just going in skips. They're being thrown away. So all I do is I go to industrial estates, I collect some pallets, I bring the pallets home and I store them in my garage for about a month. That makes sure that if they've been left out and they got wet, then they're super dry. Now, between collecting the pallets, which is maybe a 10-15 minute drive, and getting to my garage, it's maybe about an hour or two of work, but in the end it pays off. Now, this isn't the easiest thing to do. First off, you have the initial investment. You need to install a wood burning stove. If you're not handy like me, you will have to pay someone to do this, and this can cost around €1,000. But once you have it installed, you have a source of independent energy fueled heating in your house forever. There's no reason why you can't switch to wood when prices go up and switch back to gas if you feel like it when prices are reasonable. A stove is also a really nice way to heat your house. You can sit around it in the evening. Now, the only downside of pallets is you're going to be feeding the stove often. But that's still way better than feeding your bank account into the pockets of rich shareholders for oil companies. So you've got your stove installed, you've got a source of pallets, probably you got them in your car, or if you're me, I have a van, so it's easy. The next thing you need to do is chop them up. So let's head out to the workshop and I'll show you how I do that. So you can cut up a pallet with this. It works, it's slow, it's tough, but wood warms you twice. You can also cut up a pallet with this. This works, it's a lot less slow, but it's a bit dodgy and it can snatch. I personally don't like using this tool for cutting up pallets. This is very good, especially if you want to work inside, out of the rain, and you have 1 or 2 small pallets to cut up in your own garage. If you're using one of these, I would recommend you get a kind of a rip saw, hardwood style. One of these blades anyway. They're pretty good, by Bosch. I think you get €15. You will snap them though, because inevitably sometimes it catches on the edge of the hardwood and it breaks. My tool of choice is going to be the chainsaw though. Just a quick note on chainsaws, they are super dangerous. I don't recommend them to everyone. If you already own a chainsaw, then it's a great way to do it, and I'll show you what protection I use when operating one. If you don't own a chainsaw, I'd advise you try use a handsaw or a jigsaw to cut your pallets first. I understand it is a privilege to be able to buy a chainsaw. Of course, the first thing when using a chainsaw is hearing and face protection. You want a chainsaw Very important thing when using a chainsaw always is a proper first aid kit. On the outside I have a tourniquet, and on the inside I have hemostatic bandages, chainsaw boots and chainsaw pants. Don't overfill it, always leave an air gap. It can expand when warm. I don't think I have to mention this, but just in case, make sure you're running your saw on 50 to 1 2-stroke. Don't put pure petrol in your chainsaw. If you're new to chainsaws, you know that'll blow it up. Chainsaws are not 4-strokes, so. Next thing you're going to need is a good source of pallets. I collected these from some local estates. I was asked for permission when getting pallets. Would never take them without asking. What you want is you want pallets that have hard, not hardwood, it's probably softwood, but you want hard, proper blocks of wood in the corners. I'm sure if you look at these codes, you'll probably tell me that these are toxic and that I'm gonna die. So I actually paused the editing of this video to find out the exact pallet codes and what they mean, because I want to give you the right information. So they're actually brought in by the International Plant Protection Convention. They're to stop lice and insects crossing from one country to another and becoming a problem. So the pallet codes which are acceptable and which are okay to use are HT for heat treated, KD for kiln dried, DB debarked. The ones to avoid are MB methyl bromide, that's a fumigation of a chemical used to kill pests, and SF sulfuryl fluoride fumigation, another chemical. So these are not nice to burn in your stove, and you definitely don't want to be handling them either. There's a new alternative treatment called DH, dielectric heating, that uses microwaves or radio frequency to heat the wood and kill the pests. So these ones which are used just to heat up to kill the pests are okay. The chemical treatments you want to avoid. So that's just a small piece of information on that. Back to the video. I'm going to be using this big garden leaf bag as a collection bag for all the wood. Make sure your first aid is somewhere close where you can access it very quickly if you need it. Make sure you pick up the pieces as you go. Make a safe work environment. You don't want to trip up, fall over. Look at this wood, it's great. I'm going to split this up and make some fantastic free kindling. Look at that, lovely free wood. That's a good half an hour of warmth, that is. Now, that's a lot of wood. That's a good 2 weeks of firewood. Now, it's not free. It comes with physical labor, a bit of time, a little bit of petrol and bar oil, and owning the kit. But once you're set up, that's basically free wood which is already going to go to scrap. Now, I like to choose the bigger blocks for the longer, slower burns. There's already a basket inside of a lot of smaller ones, so. Here I have a small tree stump, which is perfect as a small chopping block for making kindling. One of the best parts of pallet wood is you have these really nice pieces which are easy to split. If you're not very confident with an axe, just be careful. This is perfect dry kindling, which makes starting a fire so easy. You only need one tiny fire lighter, and you can see the effect of this already. It's just such a nice way to heat your home. Another way to ensure you're burning pallet wood clean and efficiently is to get a temperature sensor on your stove. You can see here when it's in the red, it's on an optimum burn. This means it's burning at a heat where it's complete combustion and a lot less emissions are going into the atmosphere or smoke for your neighbours. Once you reach the peak temperature, you can lock it down reduce the oxygen, and you use the heat of the stove box itself to maintain the heat of the room, and the flames will naturally slow down. So hopefully that explains everything. Like I said, the softwood of the pallets does mean you're feeding the stove more often. And I know one of you is going to jump down in the comments and probably say, but pallets are toxic, there's chemicals in them, you don't want to breathe that in. Well, in my living room, I have an air purifier right next to the stove. So I'm confident with a smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide alarm in my living room that there is no dangerous chemicals and smoke coming off the pallets which is harming me and my family. If you prefer to use other wood for your stove, that's perfectly fair, and I also plan to do this, except when you first install your stove, you want dry wood fast and you want it cheap. So I didn't want to spend money on firewood. It takes 1 to 3 years to season wet wood. So I have wood seasoning, but until that's ready, I'm going to use pallets. If this video helped you, please drop a like and share it with someone who might find it useful. Thanks for watching.